All right, so I want to start our conversation today with a story. It is a story about our third son, George. He's the rock climber, if you read the bio that we wrote for the program. And it's about a young George who was served well and then not so well by public schools and public school teachers. So George continues to be full of surprises. He was swimming like a fish at 2 years old. At 3, he started drawing. And I don't pretend that that's unique for a 3-year-old, but I mean he really started drawing. Like, this is something that he drew when he was about 4. And you'll notice the detail, the individual scales, the teeth, the perspective, the smoke wafting into the distance like it was freaky. And then he just stopped drawing. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it went. My point, George, full of surprises. Here's the other surprise as a parent. George did not want to read. He went into kindergarten not knowing letters. He didn't know his numbers. He didn't know his colors. Turns out he's colorblind. But we didn't know that then. All we knew is that we have this young man going into kindergarten, and his brothers were reading out of preschool. So Alice and I, being the parents, we were those parents, met with the kindergarten teacher, and told her, like, what's wrong with him? And she was terrific. Anybody want to guess what she said? Essentially, she said, I got it. I hear you, but I've been doing this a while, and I love it, and I'm good at it, and George is going to be fine. Being a little skeptical, Alice volunteered for the first time to be a classroom mom, right? So she's in there every week, and sure enough, she had it. Like, she just really did have it. And by the end of the year, George was doing great. All right, fast forward a few years. New district, new school, George is going into 4th grade. And we go to meet the teacher, and I meet this person, and he is fresh out of school. Hasn't taught a lick. And I had been in the public education space for about 8 years at that point, and what I had learned was teaching well is hard. It takes a minute. Even for somebody who is committed and engaged, it doesn't come right away. And it made me wonder, what should I do here? What kind of parent should I be? Should I be the dork that goes into the public record VAM data and figures out what teacher is in that school that has multiple years of high growth rates? I ultimately chose to do nothing because I didn't want to be that parent. And I liked the guy, and I wanted to extend the benefit of the doubt. And so I did. And here's how it went. This is public data. This is growth data for Georgia school, 4th grade math. So we can see right here, 4th grade math, each row is a teacher, and the scale here is years of student growth above or below typical. So in this case, a result of 0 would indicate that kids in that classroom learned on average a year's material in a year's time. Typical rate of growth, right? If I see a green bar pushing to the right, I'm at like 0.7, what does that say about the average growth rate for the kids in those classrooms? How many years of growth did they demonstrate? About 1.7? Yep. How about the bars that are pushing to the left? What does that mean about the kids in those rooms? It doesn't mean they didn't grow at all. It means they grew that much less than a year, right? So it means if the bar is pushing to, say, minus 0.8, those kids learned about 0.2 years in a year's time. Now, honestly, where do you want your kid? Which one? Teacher D, and maybe E, maybe F? Where do you not want your kid? Anybody want to guess where George was? George was in room C. Also on the public record file, they will tell you the number of students that met expectation, meaning they just grew a typical amount. 22 kids in that classroom, 21 of them failed to meet expectation. That landed hard. Like, I'm trying to make the point. It's just data until it is your kids sitting in that room. And then it matters a little more. Question is, what do I go do with this information? Like, again, am I going to be that parent? Here's the thing. George loved that teacher. I mean, loved him, like, is still one of his favorites. We'll talk about him today. There were good things happening in that room. They just weren't about fourth grade math and ELA. Like, I'm sure he learned something, but he did not learn anything about fourth grade math and ELA. I want to be fair. Classroom experience was positive. And I am certain that that teacher had no idea that the rate of growth for the kids in his classroom were that low. I'm sure that the principal didn't know either. Should we have known? We probably should have, right? But could we? This is 2016-17. So these are the days of iReady and STAR, and I'm gonna suggest that while those instruments are really good, hear me, I'm not bashing the instruments. They're highly correlated, reliable, useful, but the way that data gets reported often, it creates a false impression of success. How many of you have had the experience that you think things are going pretty well, and then at the end of the year, does not pan out, and there is heartbreak? A few of you, you've lived through it, right? As it turns out, there's a reason. Right? There's a reason that that happened. It is not the quality of the instrument. It is the quality of the reporting. All right, so today's objective. I hope that you leave here feeling informed, empowered, and encouraged to challenge conventional wisdom. I hope you leave here believing that you should be a picky eater. Don't consume what everybody serves up to you, right? And I'm talking about your own assessment departments. I'm talking about the State Department of Ed. I'm talking about vendors like me, right? Like me. You should be skeptical. You should know what questions to ask and need to be convinced. I hope that we're gonna leave you here feeling prepared to do that. And maybe along the way, we solve a couple mysteries, like the one that I just mentioned about STAR and iReady, why does it not work out like I thought it was gonna work out? And more recently, with FAST, why does it look like the bottom fell out at PM1? Why does it look marginally better at the middle of the year? And why do we end up about where we thought we were gonna be anyway? Why is that happening, right? Mystery that I hope you walk out of here, you're gonna know for sure why that's happening. Okay, so here's the question, why this objective, why now? Why this objective? I'm gonna circle back to it's not what education is about, but if we're gonna find more teachers like Precious, who are building students like the ones we saw, creating opportunities for students like that, we've gotta find them, A, and B, we've gotta know what the outcomes data looks like that tells us this is probably happening here. And if we can do that, we can also say it's definitely not happening here. I would wanna know what was happening in George's classroom early enough to do something about it. Either the teacher changes what they're doing or the kid gets turfed somewhere else where the teacher does know how to teach fourth grade ELA and math. Okay, why now? The now has to do with FAST. Like FAST it's a game changer. And not everything I'm gonna say today is gonna be complimentary of how the DOE has reported their data. But I believe what they did with FAST was visionary. Having a universal progress monitoring instrument, K12, like, oh my gosh, we can, for the first time, turn on the lights in K2. We can be building literacy and math literacy starting in kindergarten in earnest. We can do that. But as it turns out, we can only do that if we change how we think about this data from being accountability data, which is how it's provided right now, to improvement data, right? providing it in a way that helps us to answer one simple question. Is what we're doing working? Right? If I invest a ton of PD or an initiative around a group of teachers and a set of content, I should have a way to know, is that having the desired effect? And right now, that question is very difficult to answer in the way the data is reported. But the data is good. That's why now is such a terrific opportunity.